Okay, so we're live. So, hello everybody. Yes, we're all familiar with each other here. So, um, as usual, let's just take a few minutes to sit in silence, breathe, meditate, and let ourselves just mellow out a little. So you can close your eyes if you like. And we'll go in through the nose and out through the mouth. Making the draw and release of breath as effortless as possible. And letting the time between inhale to exhale glide very softly, so as not to be abrupt in changing direction. Thank you all for being here today. Namaste. So, as we've discussed, we will be talking about sleep deprivation and sleep fasting, as that's, I guess, more of a term that implies control over the sleep rather than just being without sleep for a long period of time. And there are a few reasons as to why we might do this, and spiritually, I feel it's a very good way to realize where our energies go and what gives us energy, what stimulates us in certain areas, or certain chakra points, as we may call it. So before we get into that, I do just want to give a little warning, to anyone, and that's that being sleep deprived it can be quite dangerous. You can get very ill. You can become quite sick if it's not something that you have become accustomed to, and that can manifest as in you could just shut down. Like, I know someone who has been sleep deprived and just shut down. His body's just shut down while he's been cooking food, and he actually gashed open his face along here. Fortunately, right in that crease line where you smile, so you can't really see it, but it was a very serious problem, and he was, it woke him up a bit as to being careful with maintaining sleep. So I just wanted to get that out there. So I don't want anyone to injure themselves or become seriously ill because of this. And that being said, it is something we can ease ourselves into, and it is something that can become a very useful tool to lengthen our spiritual practice and become accustomed to anyway. So when we think about sleep, we also need to speak about dreaming. And when we think about what we do when we sleep, and what we do when we dream, we in a way like let our imaginations run wild. We conserve the energy that's in the body so that it can heal within. We are absent of light, or we should be absent of light, usually absent of sound as well. And all our senses turn inwards rather than outwards. And so we can cater to that to improve the longevity of our waking state. And so there's kind of two parts to that. There's input and the conservation of what's already inside, and there's the production of the energy. There's the production of different energies around the body that we can associate with different centers. And this will sort of set us up for the chakra meditation a bit later on as well. And so, is everybody all right with that so far? Everyone sort of following that gist? Okay, great, awesome. But you know, just at this moment, I'd like to just ask you guys, you know, how what your experiences are with lack of sleep, or if you've you know, had to go on any all-nighters and things like that, and what your feelings and thoughts were surrounding that. So you know, we'll start straight on with Brandon, who's the first one in the line I see here.
Okay then, I feel like that with my experiences, it has been more of like gaining time. That right now through my days in the present moment, I am using, like, for, let's say, put, like, you could say, pulling all nighters here to like accomplish some things that I need to get done. Like, for example, I'm working in a project that me and Atina are working on, or even studying for an exam with maths, or even some general aspects that I need to get done. So I feel like that here, going beyond your limit of like simply putting all nighters is a way of just simply like getting things accomplished for myself. But in other ways as well, it really changed my like it on the world, because as soon as the world sleeps, like you literally see how the world is very quiet and how everything just interacts with each other in a very still and very in a very like a symbiotic nature type of lifestyle. And that here, when you just take a moment to just um stand still, be in the stillness when everything's silent, when everyone's already asleep, it really changed your perspective on life, and it just really shows you on how that we're all literally all connected, that we all have a part to play, even with our contradictory ideologies, philosophies, and religions and beliefs. That here we play a part in sleep as well. We all must here we all play a part when we fall asleep. When we all fall asleep, we're all contributing to ourselves. We're all sleeping as well. Like a workplace, we're all doing the same thing. We're sleeping, so it's a type of type of like business structure, if you could say. I don't know the proper words for it, but like it's just basically like an ecosystem. Well, that's my perspective on it, my experience.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. Thanks for sharing that. And so, Karen, do you have any thoughts, feelings surrounding sleep fasting or sleep deprivation?
Yeah. In the beginning of my spiritual journey, I had one friend who kind of like was like right there with me. Like, okay, we were like learning off of each other. And he wouldn't sleep, like he would like meditate instead of sleep. And then it was like really hard for me to wrap around my head around that. But, if you meditate right, I've read, or yeah, if you meditate right, then you can even get a better rest than sleep sometimes, and it's like, I feel like because it gets to a point where we're sleeping, just like you said, like, I guess maybe that like darkness gives us rest. But if even if that I'll like try to combine everything. He is up and work and trying to, it's like it's still working, right? But let's say we are fasting, right? And we are sleeping, and our body just like kind of like shuts down, but we're still meditating in our head, like, and we do this practice every day. Then a lot of beautiful things can come from it. It is still a practice, so people who don't sleep, it's like it's a practice to them. And I know that he used to, I don't know if he still does, but he used to do at least like 3 hours of like meditation in the middle of the night. So either he would wake up at 3 and then see the sunrise, or he would wake up at 12 and then meditate till 3. And like that would be his time slot where he would choose, like basically in the middle of the night, so he can actually practice this body sleep mind aware meditation, and he can get that rest that he needed, as well as like he wouldn't wake up as tired. So he's like mixing them both, but that was his practice. Yeah, that's all I have for now.
That was great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing, Karen. And finally, Kevin, do you have any thoughts and feelings surrounding sleep deprivation?
Not really specifically with any intention in mind like yours. The only time I can think of that I really did that is the first time that I ever left the country, the United States. I went to the Philippines of all places, and so from Chicago, I had later in the day that my first flight was. So from Chicago to LA was 4 hours, and then from LA to Hong Kong was 16 hours, and I can't sleep on planes. So it's already the end of my day. So now I got 20 hours later, I land in Hong Kong, still another hour and a half to go to get to the Philippines. So I arrived at the Philippines having been awake for all that time, the day leading up to the almost 24 hours of flying, and it was like 8 in the morning. So I went through my day of arriving in the Philippines still awake, and then when I went to sleep at probably like 7, because that's as far as I could make it, then I very instantly changed to that time zone, which was really nice, because then I didn't have to worry about any of that, that flight lag or whatever it's called, jet lag. And that's really it. And I can't even tell you, like, if I was starting to hallucinate or anything. I think I was in such a crazy new place that I was completely infatuated with, that I didn't even recognize the fact that I hadn't slept in, many, many hours.
Thank you, Kevin. So yeah, I really enjoyed what you guys said there, and to go back to you, Brandon, what you said about the collective sleep patterns. That's a very, very interesting topic, and there's a lot to be said on that, specifically in the way we dream, and how there could be various connecting ways in the way we dream. Well, there are, but they're very elusive, and the dream state is a very enigmatic thing. But that's a very important topic that we probably should come back to at another date. And
nice. That is a big topic. It is.
Yeah, it's a very big topic indeed. And Karen, when you were talking about meditating instead of sleeping, that is a very crucial point, which we will sort of touch on today. But I do like the habit your friend formed of waking up and meditating and then sleeping again. That's a very a good point that I might try, actually. Yeah, making it a practice is a very good thing, and this whole sleep deprivation thing has kind of evolved from a practice I formed out of I mean practice in routine, and then from practice as in like experience from quite a young age. But yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. And it's very interesting, Kevin, that you said your first time leaving the country was to the Philippines. There is a very financial connection between the US and the Philippines, especially surrounding the cryptocurrencies, which you've probably seen recently. But that whole notion of not having a choice, whether you can't sleep, you physically can't, that sort of puts you into that survival mode, and you're then forced to deal with things. And so there are ways which we can help ourselves if we we don't want to actually deprive ourselves of sleep, but we have no choice. There are some good techniques for just elongating our collective focus, so to speak. So yeah, with that, let's just go straight into how we can sort of give ourselves this cyclical care, and by that I mean by going down and up. You guys know what I mean. But just it's kind of going through energy centers of the body and way we perceive things, specifically starting with the mind, eyes, and ears, and then moving down into our feelings and physical attributes. And so if I am going to spend a night awake, I would typically start with and I want to do some work. Let's say like there's a task I want to do. This is why I'm staying awake. This task I want to do, and so there'll be various stages I'll go through, and then the work will be segmented. as a part of that cycle. And so we start with, well, I start with viewing something of beauty, viewing something of that generates emotional reactions that I feel are stimulating. And after that, listening to something, listening to some one or two songs that I feel are very beautiful and harmonious, or if I want to be very active, I could listen to some, hardcore rock or something like that. It depends on where you want to direct your energy as well. So it can be quite, you have to navigate which way you want to go. So then there's, sound creation, alming, singing, or just simply, as you've mentioned already, Kevin, vibrating, using sounds to activate certain parts of your body or give yourself some inner stimulus. Then there's physical exercise, and these are all sort of connecting different senses as you go down. Physical exercise actually, contrary to what people might believe, physical exercise gives us energy. If you exercise a lot in one day, your body knows that you need more energy for tomorrow, so it will direct more energy towards your physical body. And so you can actually get down, do some push-ups or do some kind of yoga practice to help bring some life back into your body and wake yourself up out of that drowsy, sleepy state. Then beyond that, there's sexual activation, which you can, go down and just have some sex, or you can masturbate, or you can activate yourself in a way of sexual feeling, like getting those emotions flowing. I'm not talking about orgasming here. I'm talking about just having that energy flow through your body. It's very activating. So that's all the way going down to the bottom. And then after this, there's a stage of meditation, just being, with no thoughts, no feeling, no direction of energy, just being. And that's where the sleep kind of comes in. And then you shut down, you shut your eyes, you shut your ears, and after that stage, you will feel more invigorated. And this is where you can slot in work after this stage. I mean, I usually do the meditation and then get to work, and then I would repeat these stages once I start to feel drowsy again. And so there are some concepts we can talk about to actually kind of put that into practice. That was just like an overview of this structure. So try and think. I have written down here the Qigong method of conserving different energies. So I guess I'll just run through this. And the first one is the crane, which is known as Guan. In Qigong, we see the crane as a symbol of the contemplative energy, the mental focus. The actual symbol for contemplation in Chinese is an old picture of a crane. And as you may have seen before, you have the crane, which is perfectly perched on the end of the marsh. It almost looks asleep, and it's waiting in anticipation until a fish swims by, and it will just snap up the fish. And so that's the one of these three treasures is the contemplative energy, where you are perfectly still, not using any physical energy, not emitting vibration, not taking light in or sound in, perfectly alert and ready for anything, yet calm and completely tranquil. And so that you could link to the state of meditation. And the next one is the turtle. The turtle lives a very long life because it conserves Shen, what is known as Shen, which is the spiritual or psychic energy, which relates to the crown and the eyes. And we say the eyes are the windows or doorways to the soul. And it's a two-way street. We don't just receive. By gazing outwards, we actually project our thoughts. I'm not talking about like physical projection, but we project our thoughts into the world, and we receive the light or the objects, the concepts we have of the things we see, and that becomes something we spend energy on. So to conserve Shen, the turtle retreats into darkness, into the safety of the shell, and becomes very introverted in that way. And so we can do a little practice here to conserve Shen and actually stimulate these energies. Well, if we want to conserve it, we would close out the light and any sound, which is not something we're really able to do right now on the talk. But physically, you can raise, like elongate and contract the neck muscles, not as in really pushing, but just ever so slightly, breathing in and breathing out while contracting and elongating the muscles. And this helps to connect those pathways that stimulate the input of energy into the crown and third eye chakras. You don't so much need to actually physically move, but just by thinking, you will create micro movements in those muscles, which is what we aim to do here. And so I'll also add that when you go about your evening or day, which is in this case sleep deprived, it's very important to move slowly, restrict the amount of light. You'll see people who often work late night, so usually like with their hood over and very close into their desk. It's very helpful to restrict the amount of input stimulus. The same with sound and movement. Gliding from place to place, being as efficient with your energy as possible, really helps in the conservation phase. And lastly is the deer, and this is probably the strangest part of sleep deprivation, is the sexual thing, as I mentioned earlier. The deer has long been noted as a symbol of fertility or sexuality. The deer in Chinese is the sexual energy is called jing, and you may know that the glands of the deer they produce what's known as musk, and musk is a very potent aphrodisiac. It's used in a lot of specialist like perfumes and aphrodisiacs. And so the Chinese believe that when you the deer, when it sleeps, rests its lower hoof on the perineum, which is the soft spot between the anus and your genitals. And by applying pressure here, the Chinese believe that it reverses the flow of the sexual energy and sends it back up the spine to repair the brain. It's believed there that the decaying of the brain and mind in old age is due to a lack of the sexual energy flowing. And so you can put pressure on your perineum to invigorate that sexual energy, which it does not have to be actual, like how we perceive sex. It's more of an invigorating energy, like a stimulant. So these are the three treasures which are used to conserve energy and promote longevity in our waking states and in life as a whole. So the crane is alert but ready, alert but still. The turtle conserves by becoming introvert and retreating inwards, and that increases the mental, spiritual awareness. And the deer sleeps with pressure on its perineum to conserve the sexual energy and feed that to the brain, which is the same technique that people use. You may have seen with the ankh. The ancient Egyptians used an ankh placed on the back of their neck at the point of sexual orgasm, it was looping the energy back in so that it does not escape through the crown. So those, I mean, that's just kind of an overview of this very in-depth topic. I mean, at this point, are there any questions you guys have, or maybe you want me to take an angle to go in towards if anything was unclear?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Karen. When you mean conserving energy, what did you mean? Like when the people of the workplace, like I would more. The light will give energy, but how is it that when we retreat back, what is the process of conserving energy when we retreat inwards again?
You mean retreating inwards as in shutting out all stimulus?
Yes. How does that work? Because I just would like to know.
So when you, like I explained with, when you're looking at things, you are stimulating your mind in the outside world. You know, we sleep in a sense because we need to be disconnected from this reality. We have this other world, which is the spiritual world, which we have become very disconnected from, and we kind of go through life ignoring that in our waking states, and then we are forced to sleep every night. We have to come back to this world to connect with the spiritual realm, to replenish our souls, replenish our spirit, and therefore replenish our bodies. So that's kind of why we conserve and increase that, and by conserving it and kind of like having this really slow, drawn out fade into sleep, we can see what it is we need. You know, some people may need more stimulus in emotional creation. Some may need more audio or visual or physical, sexual. So there's a lot of different elements.
Oh, okay, right.
But yeah, thank you.
Clear.
And Karen, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna add, emotional energy is so draining. I was gonna add to your little thing spiel, or maybe it even has to do with coming inward, because I read this, and it's like, it's so true. Like, I find myself like being so like super passionate about something, and I'm like talking about it and like putting all my love and conservation, and like by the end of like our 2 hour talk, or me hanging out with somebody, I'm exhausted. And like, we also, like, emotional energy can be very exhausting in terms of like how we react to things that don't need our reactions. So like, for example, if we watch an emotional movie, we're crying. Well, I cry. And we are like wasting kind of like our energy on crying. It's just like a small little example of like how emotional energy we like just give it out, right? Because I don't know, like it's like really hard to, I guess, control if you're not aware of it. But conserving emotional energy will also like do what you're saying.
Yeah, I agree with some of what you're saying, but I would also like to add to that I think what you're talking about is a restriction of energy there. And no emotion is wasteful. It depends on where we're meeting. You know, if for example you have a situation that requires 3 buckets of emotional energy and you use 4, that extra 1 bucket of energy becomes stress for you. That's how the emotion works. We don't want to be under emotional and appear to not care, or we would shut ourselves down in that sense and then drain ourselves further. But we don't want to be over emotional and give too much, because that becomes, like I said, stress. And then for the other person, it can be a sign of overindulgence, or like you are trying to get something more out of the situation than is there. And so there's a balance at play there. Yeah, so yeah, definitely. I wouldn't say that any emotion is wasted. I just feel that with overindulging or underindulging? There's a two
yeah,
different.
like I mean, even it still has to do with like the emotional body, you know, and like the reservation of like the emotional body and like, how we use it every day. And like, yeah, like you're right. It's like, well, the people who are overindulging in emotion, some of them don't know that they're overindulging in emotion. So it's like even just that awareness that like, you know, if you're too extreme on the other, it is like kind of like taking this energy out of your emotional body, which is like vital for like the type of work that you're bringing up.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Karen. I mean, there was something in your first statement that I forgot to answer. I've forgotten about. So sorry if that didn't match up properly. But there was something you said that was a very key point, which I've forgotten. So apologies for that. Thank you for bringing that up. And Kevin, did you have anything to add there? Did you want to say anything? All good?
Nope, I'm all good.
Good stuff. Okay, so yeah, we've kind of just gone over a broad thing. I'll add a little kind of explanation of where I got into this, and then we'll wrap it up so Kevin can come in with chakra cleansing. And so this topic, or this idea of sleep deprivation, started for me when I used to hang out with some friends when I was younger in school, you know, secondary school or how do you call it, high school, and we would stay up very late watching things, talking, eating, and whatnot. And anyone who fell asleep was tormented. You would be, you know, just teased in all various ways, and it was even to the point where everything would stop. Everyone would stop doing what they're doing, and they would wait till that person wakes up and carries on participating. So I was forced in a group of like 10 to 15 people to be awake, on, you know, with no end for the entirety of the night. And you know, that then became something I chose to do after a while, because I, you know, sought the solace in the nighttime of being able to work with no distraction. And then this has you know, evolved in various ways throughout the years, and it came to a point. Someone reminded me earlier, I can't remember what was said, but came to a point when I was in China, and I was actually studying the Qigong practice, and I came across these three treasures, this idea. And it was actually during going through the evening and then sitting to meditate for a while that I felt the influx of energy. And that's what it was, Karen. It was the emotions generated from sitting in meditation and thinking become like fuel for you. The more you can dive into where your emotions come from, and you can dive into your past and free your emotions from the bondage of being latched to moments, it becomes more available in the present. And so you transform the way you see different things. You have more emotions coming out and bubbling to the surface and putting to use. And so it was in this moment that when I had this evening of meditating and letting the emotions flow and you know, staying awake for as long as I could just to see how it would go, I was full of life. The next day I had no sleep. I was completely awake and alive. I went teaching kids in school again, and I was like, you know, will the children be loud and crazy? And then I saw everything in a different way. The way I was eating the food, the way I was drinking. This is something that we didn't get into, but drinking and eating are very important as well. And when you do it in tandem with meditation, they fuel you even more. You bless and give thanks to that water, just as we did in the coded water talk, and even with your food, and really seeing the spiritual energy that's there all continues to elongate the time you can stay awake for. And so that was where this breakthrough came for me. And really, you know, I think I stayed awake for 4 days at that time. That's the longest I've ever stayed awake for, 4 days. But yeah, it can be very easy to do 1 or 2 days just by using these techniques that we've talked about. And so just as a final note, in summary, I want to reiterate this point of yin and yang, especially because we've been talking about emotions, and there is, to put broadly in 2 brackets, fear and love. And we can see them as, you know, the two wolves. And everybody always says, well, you know, the parable, which wolf do you feed? There's the good wolf, the bad wolf. And I would say feed both wolves equally, but feed each one the medicine it needs. And we could say that as in, give the bad wolf the good emotions to neutralize it, and give the good wolf the bad emotions to neutralize it. The good wolf, so to speak, will take the chaos and calm it, whereas the chaotic bad wolf will take the good energy and it will have direction and purpose. And so this can be like a middle way, like the antimatter meets matter. And like I said, this then stops the imbalance and we have a platform for which this fuel can sustain us. And so that was what I wanted to wrap up with there. I'm very open to any final thoughts, final feelings you wish to share. Sure, Brandon.
I was also going to say that here. I was also agreeing with you 100% on the yin yang concept as well. Because with what Karen said, that she felt like emotionally drained. Because I feel like that here that with when people go into those certain situations, that they require the opposite energy. Just as that when they're putting so much creation and creativity into their thing, their business or whatever they're doing, and that they might come into like a creator's block. I would not that you guys have heard of that, like a creator's block. And because I feel like that it is the lack of having someone with that opposite energy to help you spin that yin yang in rotation again. It's like you can't only have that creative side, so you must just flow around with the positive and the negative, the push and pull. So you must have those two energies in order to help you to balance out whatever you're doing in life. So like, I just want to say it because I really agree with you in that statement of what you said, Anthony, about the yin yang.
Thank you, Brandon.
I had like things I wanted to bring up. I know you want to end it though, so I don't know if that's okay.
It's okay, take time. I mean, Kevin's the one who'll be waiting. So if you're okay, Kevin, then
Okay, I'll be like brief. I'll just kind of like exchange a couple thoughts. I like how you brought up the going down and then coming back up, swooping back up. Because when when you are maybe like in the middle of like staying up, right? It's our body is like, for example, not to do things, but let's say that you're laying down and staying up, right? Like, or laying down trying to meditate and staying awake. Our body is gonna like try to like move or like find comfort. And like I think that like listening to the body and actually doing what you said, going down the body and like scanning it, right? And like comforting it, like organ by organ, bone by bone, vertebrae by vertebrae, and then even down to the legs, and then like coming back up again. Just like figuring like picturing relaxing, but staying awake. Yeah, I feel like that can help in getting your body to rest. And, you know, and we all like grab onto like energies sometimes that latch onto our bodies, and like it's like a way of like releasing that, you know, and like releasing, and then sometimes we just go to bed and knock out and like go straight to black when, you know, our bodies like, you know, are still going through this process of like, okay, like let me relax first, like, you know, let me unwind. So, you know, like taking care of that like sleep aspect of like, I'm going to sleep, I'm getting ready to sleep, or my body's getting ready to sleep, drinking that glass of water before sleep. Like we don't really like think about it too much. We just come home and like, or we're on the phone and then like blackout, black, right? And it's like, there's that like sweet meditation we can like do to ease that, and even stay awake longer in our brains. I was also gonna talk about timeline jumping and awakening, because I feel like every time I go to sleep, like I can sometimes I wake up in just a different me. And I feel like, I don't know, like I feel like it's more like, I don't know, like it's like a new perception, right? A new perspective of the day. But like there's so much, like while we sleep, there's so many like energies awake, working, you know. If we're sleeping, there's spiritual people working, doing the work, you know, like striving for a better future every day, you know. And like we should equally be equal towards the work as that they do. But sometimes like I wake up and I'm like, okay, things are different. You know what I mean? And I feel like we could probably like timeline jump into meditation and maybe as we're awake. But in sleeping, it's like so easy, because it reminds me of like how we were born, and we were born to this world where we don't remember, right? This is like the school of remembering. And it's like when most of us who wake up don't remember what happened, like what we dreamt about, or we just don't remember. And it's like, what if like you timeline jumped while you were sleeping? You know, it's like, what if you jumped to a parallel reality? You know, and parallel realities are like this, you know. So it might be slight, but it might be just a change in thought. You woke up more decisive, or you already made a decision in your head, like, okay, yesterday I thought about that, but today is different, you know. And it's like, so yeah, I wanted to just.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you,
amazing,
Karen, for bringing that up. There are many avenues of thought we can go down there, especially with the timeline jumping and, you know, expanding or pulling these into a focus point. I mean, maybe we should continue that conversation on another talk. We could probably make a whole talk out of just that, and I'd be happy to speak on that, on some of those points.
All right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Kevin, do you have anything you'd like to wrap up? You have the final word here.
Well, you know what? Actually, I would like for you to have the final word, and I want one more thing from you on your cool, like, 4 days awake state. I'm sure that you have a story, an example, some sort of moment that you experienced while you were doing that, or one of the other times where maybe you saw some sort of cool holographic thing, or you had some sort of neat realization or something like that. We need a good story, I think, to finish.
Okay, there's a couple of memories you just brought to mind there. And one with the hallucinogenic thing, yes, definitely. After a long time of being awake, I mean, time doesn't seem to fit into days when it's like that. It was just like one long day. But you know, I do animation, and with animation there are times when I'm just staring at the screen, and there are just points and lines and squares on the screen because I'm modeling a character, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying, Kevin, because you've worked in this field. So I'm looking at verts and polys and quads, just lots of line dots and squares. And so, because that's been a big part of my life and something I was doing in the days prior to this sleep deprivation, when I was when I was not focusing inwards and just like looking out, basically my mind was trying to shut down and tell me to dream. I was seeing like an overlay on life of those like quads, like everything was made of quads that were all like intermingling and dancing around together. And I was like, has anyone seen like the last Mimsy with the kid? You can see the sort of like cross-hatching patterns and everything. If you haven't seen that, there's basically this he basically can see like vortex points in life and how it's like the dancing energy of life connecting, and it really felt like that to me. So that was a very surreal experience, which then, you know, I saw it's always there. These things are always here. It's just that we don't have the like mental construct to connect. And I guess with the joining paths of being sleep deprived, having that kind of creation aspect of modeling, and connected with like the meditation or the spiritual aspects come with it, it brought that to mind and allowed me to connect and see into that that realm, or that thing that's hidden in plain sight, so to speak. So that was a very very interesting part of that experience. Another thing was the interplay of subconscious thought became very present. It was almost like my conscious mind started to filter down. You know, your mind wants to dive down into the roots of your subconscious mind to sleep, and so these parts of your brain become unearthed with sleep deprivation. And the confusion takes over because we are not used to this, and you just fall asleep because you can't deal with it. And so when I was teaching in the classroom, I was this was for one of the days, I was seeing how my actions, words, even just slight bodily movements and the way I was feeling was really directly relating to the children. And it's very hard to describe without meditating on this for a while. And I was just like probably so out there. But yeah, there's a much deeper connection, and we all know that everything is connected in a sense. And it was almost like I really saw the interplay of thoughts amongst people, different people connecting together. Like it was not so this is my thoughts and these are your thoughts. They were mingling. Yeah, so that's some interesting parts of that experience. I mean, I would love to take some more time to meditate and just go over the timeline of that specific point, or in some other times of sleep deprivation, and resurface these things. I haven't done any all night meditations for about 2 or 3 weeks now, so yeah, it's not fresh in memory.
Oh, trust me, I feel you there with the animation. I feel you there. I've also felt that as well.
So we are, we've been going for, I think, about 40 minutes now. I think we'll wrap up here, but we can always continue this conversation another time and, talk amongst ourselves. I'd like to say at this point, thank you very much for coming and listening to me ramble and putting your own spin on everything as well. Peace and love. And namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste, everyone.